Story 1. Consulting involves flying all over the world but never leaving the office or seeing friends and family. Story 2. I am an archaeologist. People think I am doing some crazy Indiana Jones stuff all day. But no, 90% of my working time is spent writing little numbers on ceramic fragments, and the remaining 10% is spent standing on a construction site in the rain. Story 3. Anything that requires travel. People always say things like, "Oh wow, it must be so cool getting paid to go all around the world." No, it's fucking terrible, and any excitement wears off in under a month. Work travel isn't a glamorous, open-ended vacation filled with new experiences. It's a constant, depressing slog. Impersonal hotel rooms, fast casual restaurants, awkward happy hours, and corporate meetings with idiots. Do you have friends, family, pets, hobbies, or even a home? Well, forget all that because you just traded it in for everything I listed above. Story 4. Starting a business is hard. Everyone thinks you are rich when all your money is reinvested into the business, but you have no financial security or disposable income, unlike a 9-to-5 job where you know you will get paid every month. Story 5. People think firefighting is just fighting fires and the rescues shown on television, but 99% of the time it's driving a $1 million apparatus to take Mama, whose toe has been hurting for 9 months, to the emergency room. Story 6. The next post should be about jobs that look tedious or boring but are actually interesting and fulfilling for the right kind of person. I will start. I am a medical records administrator. Story 7. High-end retail worker. People think it is fun to be surrounded by luxury goods all day. But in reality you deal with entitled customers, impossible sales quotas, and the expectation to always perform as if you are on stage. Story 8. Anything in the veterinary field is far from just playing with puppies and kittens all day. Story 9. Stockbroker or wealth manager. Clients with money can be nasty. Sales quotas and regulations are frustrating. There is the fear of clients losing money and suing you and the stress of market changes. Psychopaths tolerate all of this well because they have no guilt or shame. Story 10. A professional dancer faces fierce competition. You attend many auditions and are often not selected for odd reasons, such as being slightly too short or not slim enough. You have worked incredibly hard, and the pay is awful. Story 11. Being a flight attendant looks incredible on the terminal catwalk, but the job is half picking up garbage and dealing with people who think that being locked in a tube 30,000 feet above the ground removes repercussions and allows them to behave badly, both literally and figuratively. The other half is being expected to perform flawlessly for 12 to 16 hours on federally mandated minimum rest. I did it for just over a year and left as soon as my husband asked me to quit. I love flying, but I will never work for a commercial carrier again. Story 12. Event planning is seriously not glamorous. I have cleaned up vomit many times, dealt with bridezillas and momzillas, and crawled under a building infested with spider webs to find out why the power was out. Story 13. Surgical jobs can be demanding. Medicine, at least in the United States, carries a great deal of prestige and glamour. While some specialties, such as dermatology, seem appealing, surgical training is brutal and life as an attending physician is sometimes not much better. Pays well, but overall it can be quite taxing. Story 14. Psychotherapist. If you are not working with high-end housewives or chief executive officers, it is a lot of misery, abuse, rape, poverty, pain, and suicides and other tragedies. Every time someone dies or kills someone in your area, you pray to God it is not one of yours. Also, if you are not in the system, it is a pretty lonely burden. Story 15. Working on a yacht can be glamorous. The boats and ports are often exotic and fun. The work required to create a luxury experience for out-of-touch yacht owners and guests is often thankless. Close quarters living with other full-time crew is like working in a pressure cooker. Crew turnover is very high. Story 16. Art director and graphic designer, especially when you are freelancing. Story 17. I worked as support staff at a filming location. Many jobs on a film set are dull. Long days of standing around, repeating the same actions endlessly for actors and extras, and sometimes days or even weeks to get a few minutes of film and television. Story 18. Being a horse trainer, even in the best of circumstances, is hard work. Story 19. Finance and many other movie and television portrayals show people supposedly working long hours under time pressure, reading thousands of pages of documents and building complicated spreadsheets to analyze the very real, career-ending risks they are about to personally underwrite. Instead, they spend most of their time glamorously worrying about who is sleeping with whom. Story 20. Freelance musician. Human rights violations are just part of the job. Story 21. I worked as an assistant for several designers and shows at New York Fashion Week years ago. It was depressing behind the scenes. Everyone was in bad moods and stressed out. Models often did not eat, and the show lasted less than 5 minutes. All for fancy clothes that few people care about or will wear. It felt odd. Story 22. Modeling was the worst 6 years of my life. The pay was terrible. I made more money bussing tables when I was 16. Story 23. Being an associate director sounds great, but you may be stuck in middle management and dealing with a lot of stress. Story 24. I work in three-dimensional animation, and whenever I mention it, most people say it must be awesome. There are far worse jobs, but believe me, it is not as fun as it sounds. Story 25. Modeling is miserable. Even if you become very successful, your body is never truly yours. While everyone enjoys the perks of fame and money if you reach that level, you cannot eat what you want, drink what you like, or stay out late and enjoy the wealthy life you worked so hard for unless you retire. Then you age and are considered washed up by many. My mother has a friend who is a very famous model from the 1990s who still works. She said she would not wish that life on anyone. I always thought there were worse things in life, but what she told me sounded awful. Story 26. Concierges. In movies, it's as if these people know everybody in the city, especially very important people, and can organize whatever a guest can think of. In real life, you may know many people and arrange many things, but you are often still regarded as a nobody and dismissed after performing menial tasks. Story 27. Special operations forces in the military are Green Berets, Army Rangers, Navy Sea, Air, and Land operators, Marine Raiders, and pararescue personnel. Story 28. I considered becoming a flight attendant because I love to travel. I have friends who worked for Emirates for 3 to 8 years, and I asked them what it was like. The excitement tends to wear off within 2 to 3 years. They routinely missed birthdays, weddings, baby showers, and other events, and over time friendships and family relationships suffered. After missing so many big celebrations and not being in town much, you are likely to feel distant from those people. Emirates requires you to live in Dubai with a roommate you might never see because of opposite shifts. Many people dated other flight attendants or pilots, so the dating pool became smaller. The pay is not that great. It sounds good because you have fewer expenses if the airline covers accommodation, but you are not making much to save or invest for your future. Most of the success stories I heard involved a flight attendant marrying a well-off passenger and then quitting to focus on the relationship or start a family. Story 29. Most influencers must adopt a fake persona and constantly upload edited videos. Story 30. When working remotely, I sit at my desk for 8 hours a day. It can be depressing if you do not leave the house or maintain personal hygiene. Story 31. Software engineering. I sit in front of a screen all day, creating the next piece of software, fighting procrastination, or trying to follow a meeting that should be an email. It is the best job I have ever had, but it is not as shiny as people think. If you do not exercise, this job will probably shorten your lifespan. Story 32. Nurse or healthcare assistant. I was in hospital for a few weeks not long ago, and they are absolute fucking saints. Story 33. I worked in finance, specifically private equity in the tech sector. I worked my ass off to get there and lasted 3 years. There was no work-life balance. I worked 80 hours a week. The environment was exhausting and often cutthroat, with catty coworkers. Reactive versus proactive work, demanding deadlines, constantly shifting priorities, frequent escalations, back-to-back meetings, constant anxiety, and high turnover, which added to the workload. I quit more than a year ago to take time off and still have not fully recovered from burnout. The pay and perks were excellent by far, but the impact on my personal life and health was not worth it in the end. Story 34. Anything in fashion. The most toxic group of people you will ever meet. Story 35. Architects work long hours for low pay, and the work can be tedious, such as laying out bathrooms and staircases. Story 36. Hairdressing, carpal tunnel, shoulder pain, hair from other people on you constantly. Story 37. Wedding photography involves people pleasing, bright flashes, loud music in the ears, late nights, intense fears, and extensive traveling. Story 38. A lawyer is a top contender. You go to law school and grind your way through with no guarantee of making a lot of money. Many law graduates end up at the bottom of a low-tier firm, working long hours trying to earn an income, or branching out on their own in a field where few people can afford an attorney. They face long hours, are overworked and overburdened, carry a mountain of debt, and have little to no income. Substance abuse and divorce rates are very high. Story 39. Working at a thrift store involves discarding a large number of items. Although you find interesting things, the volume of donations can be overwhelming, and many locations are understaffed. Story 40. I am a wedding florist. I am currently eating packaged snacks in a parking lot, waiting for the ceremony to end so we can reset the room. Days are long and the pay is low, but everyone thinks it would be so fun to work with flowers. Story 41. Flight attendants. Some love their jobs and some do not. I have met both. Story 42. In the film industry, many people are assigned simple tasks and required to work very long hours. Story 43. I hold a leadership position, and most of my close friends do too. On one hand, it's nice not having to answer to anyone. However, the pressure to keep the ship on course can be draining. A common trend in our rant sessions is becoming so anxious while waiting for the team to do certain things properly that you end up saying, "Fuck it, I'll just do it myself so it's done right." Story 44. Porn star. It sounds fun on paper. Have sex and get paid. Story 45. Art-based professions look fun and chic, but art is subjective. It is all about opinion rather than objective right or wrong, so moving the needle forward can be extremely stressful. Story 46. The film industry laughing out loud. Most people think you are having fun shooting exciting scenes and going to different sets. In reality, most of the time you are standing around watching two people perform the same scene for long hours. It is worse when you are a production assistant, running around doing errands, laughing out loud. Story 47. Background dancer. It's fun, but you don't get the accolades. You run your body into the ground, listen to the same song on repeat, and repeat the same choreography for hours. Dancing in general requires this, but it is especially tedious when shooting a music video and repeating the same 10 steps for 10 hours. I imagine acting is similar, and I understand why people move to Broadway as soon as they have the chance. Performing is very different with a live audience. Story 48. Journalism is a harsh, competitive industry even in the best of times, and these are not the best of times. Reporters often have to ingratiate themselves with politicians and other loathsome people to gain access. Insane productivity metrics, unpredictable schedules, low pay, hate mail, and stalkers are common. There is emotional damage from constantly knowing about everything happening in the world. Safe assignments are not fulfilling, and fulfilling assignments are not safe. Story 49. Being a celebrity actually seems like a colossal pain. Sure, the money is good, but imagine never being able to go out in public without being mobbed. Story 50. Does any job exist that people like and are not miserable doing? Story 51. You are working at an ice cream parlor. It is hot, but your arm up to your shoulder is freezing and very sticky. Story 52. I think being royalty must suck. I watched a video of Prince Philip touring a tractor parts factory and having to ask questions and make conversation. I do not know how much wealth would be worth having to do such a boring job. Story 53. Film crews have 12-hour or longer shoots, stay up late, and return to work early the next morning. Story 54. Project managers are adult babysitters. Some adults are worse than children. Story 55. Event production involves long hours, cranky and demanding people, and moving many boxes. Story 56. People who have never worked in the service industry and have watched The Bear or any food show think being a chef is all glamour. I'm a chef and people assume I have money and a cool life, when in actuality I work to make ends meet. Story 57. A jeweler's product is shiny and beautiful. Studios are often dusty and poorly ventilated. The work is demanding and requires near perfection at a microscopic level. Salespeople and owners receive the credit for your hard work. Story 58. Being a corporate lawyer, especially in finance, is a grind. Negotiating loan agreements, purchase and sale agreements, or tax equity arrangements involves a lot of document exchange. Story 59. Modeling sounds glamorous. Occasionally it has some cool perks, but ultimately it is a lot of hurry up and wait. You contort into Cirque du Soleil positions for hours at a time for print, are told how to walk, talk, eat, and breathe, and the work can be mind-numbing. But you do get some really cool pictures, so there is that. Story 60. Baking and pastry work is hard and poorly paid. I go in tomorrow morning at 3 a.m. to make pastries for picky customers who will just end up throwing them away. Story 61. Owning a business can be rewarding. Yes, you are in charge, but often you are also your own worst employee. Story 62. Becoming an influencer takes a lot of effort, and you must stay informed about the latest trends and developments. It requires too much time. Story 63. Nothing is that one-dimensional. A job may seem glamorous and easy, but it is not without difficulties. For example, a person could make a living as a professional musician yet be stuck in a miserable corner of the industry with toxic people, while someone else could be exactly where they want to be. Story 64. Being a lawyer looks really cool on television, but in real life the lack of humanity is sometimes unbearable. Story 65. I think most jobs are not that exceptional. Perhaps only a few in the top 1% of celebrity jobs are. Story 66. I am a sewage technician. I know we look great in our stained jumpsuits, and to be honest, we pull plenty of kitty, but work conditions are pretty poor. Story 67. When you think of a veterinarian, you imagine kittens and puppies, cuddles, and lots of love. In reality, you get unpaid overtime, a toxic workplace and difficult colleagues, compassion fatigue and burnout, sick and dying animals, unpleasant owners who will bash you and tear you to pieces online, and much more. It is also criminally underpaid. In my country, it is barely an average-paying job. Story 68. As a content manager, I am constantly editing, whether working on video or writing a script, and facing deadlines. It is the worst when you hit a creative bottleneck. Story 69. I am currently en route to London. I work with major brands, optimizing their digital retail across all channels. I hate it, but I am good at it. Story 70. From what I am told, modeling, and more specifically male modeling, is unfair. Male models are paid only a fraction of what their female counterparts receive, and are often treated as props to be moved around during a shoot, even when the shoot is for menswear. As has become evident recently, sexual abuse and even rape are more prevalent in the male modeling industry. These cases include allegations involving Bruce Weber, Mario Testino, and others. When men come forward to expose their abusers, they are mocked or told that it never happened. I have not even touched on the alleged mental health abuses that both men and women in that wretched industry experience. Artificial intelligence cannot come fast enough for that industry. Story 71. Working on super yachts can be intense. The show Below Deck definitely stages a lot of drama, but it can be fairly accurate. Depending on your boat, you may work 5 to 6 months straight, from 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. I had every intention of working my way up the ranks and making this a career, but I quickly realized that everyone who had been working for several more years was miserable. You are treated like a number by the owners or guests. Yachties can have serious egos because they have been working on a boat and have a title. I have had friends who had better experiences than mine, but every single one of them now despises the industry. If you are smart with your money, it can be a great way to travel and save for the future. I would not take it back. I made friends for life, have stayed in touch with them for over 8 years, and went to places I would never otherwise have had the chance to visit. If I could do it again, I would have done it in my early 20s, not at 27. Story 72. Business travel. Develop a healthy hatred of humanity by spending too much time in airports. Story 73. My cousin, a flight attendant in the 1980s, described her job as a waitress working at 30,000 feet who could not accept tips. She quit soon after. Story 74. Influencer. Streamer. They live and die by their view counts and audience engagement. If they do one thing that sets their audience on edge, everything can collapse. Who wants to be on 8 hours a day? You know that feeling when someone is looking over your shoulder while you type? Imagine that on a much larger scale. Story 75. A flight attendant dealing with members of the public you cannot avoid. Story 76. I am an engineer with a degree in aerospace. People imagine I am like Robert Downey Jr. in the office, but in reality my work is 90% Microsoft Excel and 10% trying to stay calm with coworkers who prefer working with numbers rather than writing tasks. Story 77. Teaching. I am not saying people glamorize the job, but they do tend to glamorize the schedule, which is not all it is cracked up to be. Yes, having summers, spring break, and Christmas break off is nice, but that time is for rest and recharge because most of us work far more than 40 hours per week during the rest of the year, especially if we coach or sponsor extracurricular activities. Our breaks are also not paid. Our 9-month salary is just spread over 12 months. As for the students and parents, do not get me started. I would not say teaching is miserable, but it is not the job most people think it is. Story 78. Film direction, costume design, art direction. Working in films looks glamorous, but it's not. Story 79. Croupier in a casino. People think it is glamorous to stand in a waistcoat and bow tie, spinning roulette wheels, but it is not. Most games are slow and relatively low stakes, so you do not get to use your mental arithmetic skills often, and the hours are terrible. Pay was almost minimum wage. I had to complete a 6-week unpaid training course, and each week they lost a few applicants. I worked there for a year. Story 80. I work as an ethical hacker. People assume I break into other people's systems and steal personal data, but in reality I mostly work with code and data and spend most days at a computer. My GeoGuessr knowledge is exceptional because I practice for 4 hours every day. Story 81. It is not glamorous, but I have met a lot of people who think that teaching children under 7 is just fun and games. Teaching in any setting comes with its own difficulties. The only teachers I have met who were not extremely stressed, even if they loved their jobs, were college professors. Even then, I am sure they are stressed but better at not showing it. Story 82. Traditional wives make the lives of work-at-home or stay-at-home mothers seem far more romantic than my experience, but I would not classify it as miserable. Story 83. I was a Disney Parks character performer and portrayed a Disney princess at Walt Disney World, Tokyo Disneyland, Hong Kong Disneyland, and Disneyland Paris. I was bullied backstage and groped and harassed on stage. There were amazing moments, especially with Give Kids the World and Make-A-Wish, but the realities of my day-to-day life were physically, mentally, and emotionally exhausting. People treated me as if I were the second coming of Christ. Story 84. Management consulting in a company involves intense office politics. You need to watch yourself 24 hours a day. As a freelancer, it is much better. Many academic faculties are strongly Marxist. It is better to publish without working in universities and colleges to preserve your inner peace. Story 85. Forest ranger work is more of a hobby than a job, unless you prefer being paid in sunsets. I spoke with a couple of rangers a few years ago and they said the position offers low pay, inadequate benefits, prolonged isolation, and it is a rat race to obtain a permanent position. Last I heard, 90% of the time you will be rejected in favor of a veteran. It may seem noble, but you may end up feeling like a glorified police officer. Story 86. Modeling and acting. I'm sure that's obvious by now, but in the early 2000s, as a teenager, I was not prepared for rape culture. Story 87. OnlyFans influencer. It is very obvious why. I feel like many of them glamorize it, saying, "Oh my God, we only need to upload pictures of ourselves and we get so much money." But it is not worth the toll it takes on you and your close circle. I am not even talking about finding yourself when you are older without an actual career besides selling your body for everyone to see. Story 88. Professional skydiver, mostly a tandem instructor. Pay is not great and requires about $30,000 of initial investment just to make minimum wage. There is no predictability, health insurance, or stability. Your income is purely at the whims of the weather. If there are clouds and rain all week, you have no income. When you are working, you have to be on the entire time. You play a character, repeating the same script for the 8th time that day while trying to sound enthusiastic. It is brutal on the body. Sometimes you have a person weighing more than 200 pounds strapped to your front who might freak out and punch or kick you. Plus, someone will vomit on you at least once a season. Story 89. Administrator. You may think being an assistant to high-level executives is deemed glamorous, but in reality you are everyone's bitch. You are treated like a slave, and most departments throw their unfinished projects onto you. Higher-ups question your intelligence and walk around thinking they're superior to you. It is not a well-respected role. Story 90. Advertising. People think it's all just sitting around, drinking martinis while trying to come up with clever jingles, taglines, and videos all day. Mostly it's boring meetings looking at slide decks while people try to pretend they're the smartest person in the room. You have to constantly kiss the client's asses, even when they treat you like the help rather than a real person. You revise lines of copy and layouts dozens of times before approval. You analyze data and metrics until your eyeballs bleed. You make the logo bigger and then bigger again. You worry about budget cuts and wonder when the next round of layoffs will happen, praying it won't be your turn. That about sums it up. Story 91. Social media marketing. Everyone thinks we just get to scroll all day and make funny memes. I have been in social media roles for 10 years and I am so burned out. Story 92. Marketing is not the Emily in Paris lifestyle. It is more like The Office. Story 93. The cabin crew used to have that image. In reality, it is a combination of waiting tables, cleaning, and dealing with demanding customers in a stressful, unpredictable environment. Story 94. As a news anchor, you are literally speaking to a camera lens all day. Story 95. Fine art gallery management. People think it's like Charlotte from Sex and the City. It is not glamorous, and it often lacks clear boundaries and can be exploitative. Story 96. Being a stripper is not always miserable, but it is definitely more glamorized in the media than in reality. Story 97. As someone who worked in healthcare and information technology, the work can seem glamorous, but the instability and the toxicity of being a woman were not worth it. Story 98. Bei Modeln sind die Menschen in dieser Szene einfach so kalt und herzlos. Story 99. Veterinary medicine. Many people believe veterinarians play with kittens and puppies all day. People often bring their entire family, including children, when they bring their pets, as if it were a visit to the zoo. The suicide rate in the veterinary profession has been reported as nearly twice that of the dental profession, more than twice that of the medical profession, and 4 times that of the general population. Veterinarians experience high rates of burnout due to underpayment, long hours, and the emotional toll of the work, leading to stress and poor work-life balance. Contributing factors include increased client demands, staffing shortages, and the emotionally taxing nature of end-of-life care and euthanasia. These stressors significantly affect veterinary professionals' health and well-being. Studies show elevated rates of depression and suicidal ideation within the profession. Many veterinarians report poor quality of life, significant health issues, and use of medications, which reflects the serious challenges of the profession. Story 100. Scuba diving instructor. Yes, you get to be in the water all the time and look at the fish, but it is a lot of work for very little pay. You have to show up early and set up everything for the guests and students. You spend 99% of your time keeping everyone together and safe, and about 1% of your time actually spotting cool things. After everyone leaves, you still have to put away tanks and wash and store gear. Depending on your location and dive center, you might make $24 for 5 hours of guiding or teaching 3 people. It looks glamorous on Instagram, but in real life it is tiring and frustrating work. Story 101. In sales, I know of senior executives who have been home only once in 4 months. Screw that. Story 102. There is a young woman who appears on my Instagram every now and then. She works in finance and banking, a very corporate job in New York City. She posts photos and videos of herself at nice events and places like the Hamptons, but the main videos are about her daily grind. It is absolutely miserable. She gets home at about 7 p.m. and then keeps working. I firmly believe it looks glamorous because she is very pretty, but it makes me so sad for anyone who thinks working like that is normal. Story 103. My buddy is a mergers and acquisitions lawyer at a top firm in New York City. His firm is working him to death, though he bought a condo in Manhattan. There is very little suit wearing and litigating. It is mostly sitting in meetings with your camera off, wearing sweats and a t-shirt, and reading financial statements until 2 a.m. every night. You go on vacation with friends and still listen in on a briefing despite being on paid time off. You have to go to the lodge during your cousin's bachelor party just to log on. He personally loves it because he is a psycho. I say that with love. Story 104. Self-employment or freelancing was not worth it for me because I did not know how much, if any, I would make from month to month. Story 105. Real estate agent. It is less selling sunset and more. I have reviewed your sewer scope film. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.